All right, so the last thing that I'm going to be including on the website, other than some resources, is a PowerPoint presentation on conflict resolution. A couple of weeks back, Ms. Harlow sent out an email that had a Google form survey that I created. And the purpose of it was not only was it for an assignment, but I just wanted to see if there was any commonalities between grade levels of those who responded. And for those of you who did, thank you so much. And something I noticed was the conflict resolution. So if you look through the slides, several of them are repetitive. So one of the things that I have on there is the roles and duties of your school counselor, which was mentioned before. And then I have the program balance service distribution. So I added that into this PowerPoint as well, along with guidance, curriculum, duties, and activities. The thing that I want to focus on is this tiered support model that is shown on slide 9. It looks like the triangle, of course, or the pyramid. And this is where you have those services that are provided by your school counseling program. And if you notice, it's a tiered model, and it goes from that guidance curriculum that is available for everybody all the way up to the top with those specialized interventions. So tier 1 is those comprehensive services for all students provided by the guidance curriculum. And that information is something that all students have access to and is usually where counselors come into the classroom to provide lessons. Then, if there's anything that counselors or teachers notice within the classroom where it needs more specific and intentional responses to it, then that's where we go up to tier 2, where guidance, curriculum, small groups, and individual planning are implemented. Tier 3 is small group and or individual support. So that's that individual planning and responsive services. And then finally, we have those specialized interventions, which you see in tier 4. So to move on, we have ways to deal with conflict. So children may not have the tools necessary to navigate their emotions and the way that they're feeling. They need to get to a place where they can think before they act. And that's where they're having to tackle those feelings. So helping kids identify their emotions is something that can be very beneficial in the classroom. And something that I have noticed in my own classroom with some of my children is they are struggling to identify their emotions. And I feel like that is something that is interesting because they are 8, 9-year-olds and we're not understanding how to regulate how we feel, and we do not know how to describe how we feel. So that is something that I practice continuously in the classroom even with certain specific students, because I feel like it's a beneficial tool that they need. At first, I found it very almost uncomfortable to teach it because I kept telling myself, this is something they should have learned in first grade, but they weren't in the classroom in first grade. So it is definitely something that has to be implemented even in third. So it'll be something that they have to continuously work with. So some tier 1 interventions for tackling those feelings could be using a visual feelings chart, a stoplight. And basically what that means is if there's an instance where you notice that the students are getting overwhelmed or frustrated, you just show them a stoplight, and that just signals to them, you know what, we need to take a minute. Let's talk about why we're frustrated. What's frustrating about this? What can we do differently? Then brainstorming solutions is very important, only because sometimes some of their solutions that I've noticed, especially with frustrations with schoolwork, is that they just don't want to do it, or they're just going to answer however they want, which obviously is not going to work. So giving them ideas and coming up with ideas with classmates is beneficial. Then asking, will this make me feel better or worse? So as an example, had a student yesterday did not want to complete their work, and continuously said things like, I'm bored, I hate this day, this is dumb. So I pulled the student to my desk to talk to them, and it was so interesting to hear the thought process that the child had, because just talking to them and then asking, well, how do you think that's going to make you feel in the long run, was interesting, because this child is incredibly smart, but the self-regulatory skills, they're just not there. So I felt like that little meeting was very beneficial. And then, of course, something else you could do is those morning, afternoon meetings with the CCISD core values. Every month they change, and we all have access to that Character Strong website. It is so helpful, especially if you're not sure what to do for your kids in the classroom. There are so many lessons that are on there. And actually, I think I'm going to include that website on this website just so you can kind of see what it looks like, because I use it frequently and it is almost like a lifesaver. So we also have how this works in the classroom, which is something that that was repeated from the last slides. And here's some things to think about. So have the child think beyond the incident. So when they think beyond the incident, okay, let's look at the bigger picture. What happened? Why did this happen? What could have been done differently? Always doing that self-reflection is something that I've noticed in the classroom that is beneficial. Put yourself in their shoes. Use that with the student. That is something that could work as well, because then they could be like, oh, well, I didn't think of it that way. So they're doing some more of that self-reflection. Considering the context is important. So consider what's going on in the classroom, around the classroom, outside of the classroom. Practice effective communication. This is something else that is surprisingly something that students are struggling with. So we call it accountable talk in the classroom. I disagree with you because, instead of saying, you know what, that's a dumb answer. So practicing with them is a great way to get them thinking about the incident. And then always make sure you're modeling what you want to see. Okay, so it could be just, what are you thinking about? How should this look? Model how you want them to be in the hallway. Model how you want them to talk to one another by talking to others that way. That's just some things to think about. So the next slide is also something that is repeated from the PowerPoint. And then we have resolving the conflict. So communication, negotiation, and consolidation are all things that you could do with your students to resolve any conflicts that they have. So listening to them, understanding them, talking to them, and communicating feelings, as mentioned before, is incredibly important. Negotiating with them. Now that sounds kind of silly to want to do with a child, but we have to always remember that children are still human, and children are going to be adults one day. So they have to learn skills to be an adult in order to become an effective one. So come up with ideas with them, compromise solutions, and then implement those negotiations that you guys came up with. And then we have consolidation. So evaluate the resolution that you came up with, and always make sure you are talking about those feelings. So the next slide, this is the Character Strong website. Here, I do not think that it's going to work on the PDF, so I'm going to include a link of it below. And then also checking the It's Learning page for the Counselor Corner. There's a lot of great resources on there. So just some final notes here. Students become more positive, productive, and kind with that conflict resolution. They can become less anxious and stressed. And treating themselves and others with respect and compassion can help them avoid unnecessary conflict. And then I have a quote here, and it says, "Life is simply a long journey of problem solving and conflict resolution." I know as teachers and through all the amounts of stress that we go through on a day-to-day basis, just think about all of the conflict resolution skills that you have and just apply it to what you see in the classroom, and what have you done to solve the problems, and what can you do to help your students solve those problems as well. So thank you so much for viewing this video. If you have any questions, my cell phone number and my email are included on that last slide, along with the references. So thank you so much.